Okay.
That's a
Good
start.
afternoon, everyone. We have today the honor of Ms. Stacy Ann Patrick and Mr. Dale Gulston joining us from the affable Massey Trinidad All Stars Steel Orchestra.
Trinidad All Stars.
Trinidad All Stars Steel Orchestra. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and sharing some time with us. Dr. Tang Yuk and myself are privileged to have esteemed company with us. We just have some questions in relation to All Stars and your preparation and so on. Dr. Tang Yuk.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. So, I want to ask you first about the quality of the sound, because All Stars has, in my opinion, a fabulous sound. The sound of the band, the quality of the pans, the blend is exceptional. So, for our listening audience, could you define what gives All Stars that characteristic in terms of the sound of the pans?
Well, first I should say good evening and season greetings to everybody. We're in a season, carnival season, right? And in terms of All Stars always had that unique song because of Neville Jules, right? Neville Jules, when it comes to bass and when it comes to front line, right? He was always well touchy when it comes to those areas because from all the way back, as you know, we are 90 years old this year, and all the way back when Neville used to tune the pants, he always used to be well touchy in terms of the definition and clarity of his basses, because even sometimes the masqueraders used to just chip the bass alone because they are so far away sometimes from the band, because so much revelers used to be in the band. Sometimes you're not hearing the front line, but you're feeling and you're hearing the basses, right? And then coming just a little way closer to that if you want to call the more modern time too, when Leo Coker start dealing with our pans, the frontline pans, we always have the frontline pans really, if you want to call tight, clear, crystal, all right, in terms of the way we tune the pans. And our pans is very different also to this, if we call it standardized style pans, which is that fourths and fifth. And we use fourths and fifth, but we also have what they used to call tap point, like a spider web kind of style pattern. And what happens is that spider web pattern also, because we don't have total egg-shaped notes, we have wrong notes mainly in our front line. And the egg-shaped notes, yes, it gives you the power, but I think the circular notes, which most of our tenors have, and seconds have the circular notes inside, it gives you that tighter, right, and that little crystal song, and that's why All Stars kept that. You don't have no other bands use that circular type style in terms of the notes, the way the notes are now, right? So that's one of the reasons I think we get that that kind of crystal, and also the power coming from it, especially our front line and even our basses. Now our middle pans now also we even try our best to, if you want to call it, to modify and keep that song rich, because as you know, in musical term, your middles carry that counter melodies at times, and carry the melody a lot of times during the course, especially of your panorama piece. So to get it piercing through the band, you kind of pay attention to the tonal quality and the tuning of our, I should say, band in general. You know what I mean? And we always try keeping our pans extremely well tuned. All right, we work hard at that. Yeah, and also as Stacy says, storing the pans after the panorama is also a factor. Because you don't want to, because the pans are very expensive. We make try like for instance this year we add some bases, right? Some I think it's seven.
This will be the first year that we're actually using
seven. Yeah.
three,
Yeah.
seven bases. Yeah. But the other thing, Dr. Tanya, which I don't know a lot of people recognize, All Stars has a core stage side of about 50 playing members, and those 50 members transfer into the panorama side. So they know their instrument. Their instrument is almost like an extension of them. So they actually know where they're going to get the best sound, where the note is going to resound the best to the audience. So yes, the tuning of the pans is important, keeping the tradition is important, but the members also know their instrument.
Thank you both for that very lucid explanation. I'm sure our listeners would have found it interesting. And you talked about the front line and the bass pans. What I find also so attractive, and I'm talking about the sound of the band, the general sound of the band, is that we, as you say, we hear the bass line very clearly. We hear the front line very clearly. We hear the internal voices as well, but they don't muddy the texture. So I wondered how much of that has to do with the arrangement itself, and how much of that has to do with the music director, conductor, band leader adjusting balance between sections.
Right. Well, the style, as I got a little taste of Pelham talking about style. Everybody have their style of arranging, right? And because Leon Smooth Edwards came from the Bowels, came from Trinidad All Stars, playing in Trinidad All Stars as a double tenor player, a tenor player, he understand the pans, and that is very important to me. You know what I mean? And you understand the band, right? So his style of arranging, all right, give that, if you want, that sense of clarity all the time through the band, so you could understand what the bassist is playing, understand what the guitars or the tenors. I'm not saying other people wouldn't be able, but wouldn't do that, but as they asked about All Stars, so Smooth understands what, and especially with keys and all right, certain keys with certain pans give you that sense of power. All right. Most of the time, yes, we'll do a song in the original key, but when you hear a certain song itself, like for instance, this year we doing Bethany, right? And the first key of the song is in F, right? The original key is in F, and that in itself is a very powerful key for our bands. Some bands, C, or G. So it gives you that. So when smooth will know, well, okay, when he's spreading his harmonies, all right, even giving certain lines to the front line and also the guitars, what range of notes to give a section. And that is very, very, very important, because sometimes you go too high, it lost. As we say, lost in translation in terms of people understanding, because the basses might be so heavy, and then the tenors or front line might be a little bit too high, or your guitar. So you know what, I can balance it and put in mid range of the tenors, so you could pierce out a little more to complement both background and your basses. And it's really the style of our arranger create that sense of clarity.
Right. So really, really understanding the instrument and knowing how to write for it to get the optimal balance between the various lines. Miss Dane, I have a question for you. So of course, All Stars is one of the top bands in the country, and Panorama is a very high profile event in our country. What is it like going into this competition?
Going into the competition from
I know if you finish. Question.
All
yeah.
stars, as they might expect with some of the other big bands. Is it do you feel a lot of pressure to
So,
maintain the reputation of the? Did you hear me, or did I cut
no,
out?
I didn't hear the full. We didn't hear
No,
the full
no.
question. Sorry, it cut off.
Okay, I'll start over. Yes, we're having a little trouble with the connection today, or we also had it with our previous guest. So let me cut the question a little bit shorter. So this is for Miss Dane. So All Stars is one of the most prominent bands in the country, and
You lost it again, huh?
Dr. Tang Yuk, we had a slight connectivity issue there. Maybe you can repeat the question if you can.
I'll shorten it even more before I get cut out again. What is it like for All Stars being such a prominent band in the country, going into such a high profile competition? Do you feel a lot of pressure to retain your reputation as an outstanding band? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think that we won't be telling the truth if we don't feel some level of pressure and some level of stress. But above and beyond that, there's a huge sense of pride and joy in being able to say that we are 90 years old, that we have been able, despite everything that has happened over the 90-year period, to maintain our standards, to live by our watchwords. And we're very, very proud of our watchwords of magnificence, discipline, and dedication. So yes, we do feel the pressure. Right now, we're seventh in this panorama journey for March 1st, but I don't think that it is depressing. I think that we are actually challenged by the fact that we have to show what made us get to 90 years continuously without a break. There was never a real break of, All Stars is quiet for a year or 6 months. We're not that kind of community.
Right, thank you. And so I have to ask you this question. It's something that has come up in previous interviews, but I want to, and this is a question, either of you can respond to it. Of late, we are seeing more and more ties in the panorama competition. What are your thoughts about the scores being so close that so many ties happen? It seems like it's happening more and more frequently. And I'll invite either of you to talk about that if you'd like.
Well, I think that the standard of all of the bands have really risen to a point of true professionalism. You can't really say that any one band is not holding their own. So that is one thing. The point system, as a professional outside of Trinidad All Stars, I interview people for a living. And I do feel that there's a need to revise the way that the points are allocated. I also do think that there must be conversations. Now, I've been told, no, if you have conversations, and a stronger judge is going to be able to sway another judge. But in interviewing, and I'm just translating that to assessing the performance of a steel orchestra on stage, you should be able to get the full range of marks. So if the full range of marks is 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, it should not be that all the bands are at 4 or all the bands are at 5. When I do interviews, if I interview 6 people in a day, I don't score immediately. I take all my notes and I can tell you what the first interviewer said to the same question, the second, the third, the fourth. But when I get down to that sixth interview and I now have to look at everything, I'm able to say, you know what? Dr. Tang Yuk came in and he gave an excellent answer for communication, but John Jones did not give as good an answer. So if my range is 1 to 5, Dr. Tang Yuk is more than likely going to get the 5, but Jones will probably get a 2 or a 1. And then that way, when you look at the range of scores, you're going to see an evenness across the board. And I don't know that the system for judging Pan Trinbago has gotten to that level. And if we don't get to that level, we're going to end up eventually seeing everybody bundled in the middle. And that should not be the case. But
Right. So right. So
Yeah.
thank you for that explanation, and I share the same view. I think it comes down to the scoring on the individual level. So the range is 0 to 100. That's the range. But it seems that because there's so many ties, it means that the individual judges are using a much narrower compass, a much narrower range to score everyone. So when you tally the scores, it's inevitable that you will get ties. But I wonder why did this? Because personally, I don't think the bands are that close. I don't think they're that close. I'm not saying now. That's not to say. Let me make myself clear before I get a lot of hate email. I'm not saying that this band is so much worse than this band. What I'm saying is that we can differentiate according to the criteria, as you talked about with your interview process. We have the criteria, we have very specific instructions of how many marks are awarded for this, how many for this, how many for this. So if we follow the criteria and we use the whole range of marking, 0 to 100, it shouldn't be that close. Because I don't think, when I listen to the competition, yes, there might be a couple bands that are close, but not so many bands bunched into. I think the spread between the winner and the 10th place,
the spread between the winner
last
and the
place
10th
in the
is about
preliminaries was
7
10
or 8
marks.
points.
How many bands was
Yeah.
it for read in the prelims?
In prelims was 15.
It was the same.
Yes, it was
same
15
amount
at the
as,
prelims.
yeah, same amount as Sunday.
And I think the spread of points would have been 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we have a slide freeze on Dr. Tang Yuk. You know, Mr. Gulston, I have a question for you. I'm picking
Yeah,
on
sure.
you. I'm picking on you particularly. But Dr. Tang Yuk, you're back. You saved Mr. Gulston a question I had for him, but I'll save it for later on. Dr. Tang Yuk.
No, so I was just no, it was just I don't know when you stopped hearing me, but I was just saying that I think this is an issue because I think the judges need to use the whole scale that's given to them,
Yes.
so we can differentiate between the various bands and the placings.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead,
I think
Farid.
so.
I have a question. I'm teasing you, all right? So don't hold me to it. What we've noticed, Mr. Gulston, is in the past 10 years, and particularly so in the last 5 years, a lot of props are being used by bands on stage. Puppets, confetti, skits, monologues. And we have arrangers, not necessarily Professor Edwards, who would come on stage and they would use these little skits or monologues or props, perhaps to express or as an additive in terms of the music. In other words, let us say, and I'm using an analogy that doesn't touch on concern the large band. In the small band final, I noticed that when BJ Marcel was, who arranged Gold, when his band was performing, he ran across the stage with 2 other persons and he placed first in a mini race. And then he stepped up onto an Olympic style podium of placing 1, 2, 3, waved to the crowd, blew kisses to the crowd, a medal was put around his neck. Do you see this sort of theater by arrangers as being a distraction from the arrangement and the band's performance? Or do you see
Yeah.
this trend now as being novel and now it has infused itself into the band's presentation on stage so much so that it's welcome? What are your views on that sort of thing?
Well, once it's overdone, yes. You know, I hate with a passion. I saying it openly, hate. You know, the overdoers, then the ones who just carry it too far, all right? Because it's a musical competition. It's not, you don't get no points for presentation. None, zero. You have none of that on that sheet, right? So when it's overdone, no, yes, people may do that to really deal with the audience, because yes, it's a show, international, it's shown all over the world. But it's once it's overdone, it takes away from the listener, the person who really come or watching in and trying to listen, you know, to the music. All right. Now, Panorama have its if you want to call morality of its own, as a certain prime minister, past prime minister, all right, God bless his soul, said, you know, politics is have its morality of its own. And Panorama, yes, it have its aura, it have its taste, it have its flavor, right? It's a show, but you can't overdo it because you want to hear and concentrate and watch how pan men themselves interpreted, right? General pan men and women. Yes, sorry about that. All right, my dear lady. And women, you know, express themselves in performing the piece that the arranger put there, you know. For instance, now, it happened with me in New York, where I really didn't want, because I don't really like it too much, the conducting in front of the bands. I find it's overdone. It's too much, right? Because really and truly, a man or a person, a young man or young woman who's playing, really and truly though, if they're facing the note stand, they can't see you as a conductor. So what they're really conducting? You can't see her. You cannot. You can't. A drummer
That's a
can't see
very
you, right? A bass man with about 4 basses in front of him cannot see you. So who you're really conducting is really just in front of the band. Now, Clive Bradley used to be standing in front of the band and conducting, really, you know. He really just kind of showing the judges, take a listen to this, right? Bradley didn't used to conduct anybody. It's overdone. I honestly find when you arrange the piece, let your band members express the song. I'm very expressive. You will see Nalo and myself in front of the band and the rest of our front line, really expressing ourselves, because expressing what Dr. Smooth Edwards is trying to portray, the song, the mood, all right, and the carnival spirit. We are the ones that really bring that, not the conductor. It's, for me right now, it's overdone. Way overdone. And when you put in, even I will show you something also. Some of the confetti and the
Pyrotechnics,
fireworks and stuff is even done during the course of certain parts of the song. And I'm saying to you, it's disturbing. I stand up in the grandstand when we finished playing. We played 3. And some of the parts I shocked that the judges really could hear the full bar or bars of a certain passage. When you let off a firework in right in the middle of that, I think it's disturbing. I find it serious. It's overdone. If you want to do it after the piece and, you know, whatever it is, or if you're just using that once it's not too loud, you know, it's all right, because it's a show and you want it to look good. You want it to be as professional and look as you know, I mean, a bigger show, as you will see all over the world. But the thing is a competition. That competition for me is not soca muna or kaiso muna. I believe you have points for that, but not in Panorama. So I think it's overdone. For me, personally. I hope I answer your
Thank you
question.
so much for raising. No, thank you so much, Mr. Gulston, for raising that issue about the conducting. So, you know, I just want to add to what you're saying. I totally agree with you. But I would go even further to say it's not about overdone, it's superfluous, it's not even needed. Because if we were to, let's say, remove the conductor entirely from in front of the band, that band could still play and they could play on their own. And the nature of the music, so we're talking specifically about panorama, right? We're not talking about other genres of music, but specifically for panorama. Once they get that beat, the tempo, and it starts, you really don't need a conductor. And in fact, and I'm saying this as a conductor, if the band is well rehearsed, they can play without you, right? Even a symphony orchestra, traditional symphony orchestra, once they've learned the music, they can play they can play a lot of music without the conductor. Now, if it's an extremely complicated piece with change of meter or something like that, then you might need a conductor for a transition. But if you're playing Handel or if you're playing Mozart, if you're playing Schubert, everything goes at this tempo. It's very straightforward. So I would say it's superfluous. It's more than it's not just overdone. It's not necessary. And
Necessary.
sometimes
That's
I just wanted to
sorry
add.
to cut you. Yeah, I just saying sorry to cut you. Just as you saying that, right? Jerry Jamont in festival, we will play two pieces, which is a test piece and our tune of choice. And when we reach the calypso, Uncle Jem will actually leave the podium and go to the back and pick up a cowbell or anything, any percussive instrument and play. And that is in a festival. So as you say, and you're right, it's not needed at all. It's not needed. It's not. It
And
takes away.
sometimes
I rather see the players perform.
well,
Yeah, and a conductor jumping
I'll
around the
tell you
place.
where I'll tell you where it takes away. I'll tell you where it takes away for me. If the conductor, I mean, conducting is my field, right? That's what I did for most of my working life. So, and I taught conducting for decades. So, when I look at a conductor, I'm analyzing their technical skill. Now, I can tell when a conductor has had limited technical training. And so what bothers me, what's a distraction, is if the conductor is not exactly in time. And generally speaking, it's very common when one is learning how to conduct or even doing it without formal training, the conductor tends to be behind the beat. So this could be very disconcerting for a front line. You're playing, you're going at the tempo, everybody's listening, and the conductor's beat is slightly behind the band. And when I say slightly, I'm talking about a millisecond, but it's enough visually to be a bit disconcerting to the players. I'm sure you've experienced that situation where the conductor's not really adding anything. In fact, it's a distraction to you playing.
Yeah, definitely. As you saying that, Uncle Jem was a perfectionist when it comes to that. You understand? Because as far as I know, and if I'm wrong, you can correct me. When a conductor is in front of the band, he is in control, and you supposed to go with him, right? So if you standing there and you just doing anything, then it really making sense because pull you know what I mean? The dog in wagging no tail is the tail wagging the dog. You know what I mean? So so I'm saying you're in front of a band conducting and then the world seeing it. I just figure, you know what I mean, it don't really to me don't work well, and then it's a little bit disturbing for me. Too much of that, you know. But it became a part of our culture. You wouldn't see that in front of Trinidad All Stars. You wouldn't see that at all because
Right.
we
Well,
are there
you know,
to
it's
perform
such
for
an
the
interesting it's such an interesting discussion, and I'm sure some of our listening audience would find it very interesting. And you know, I could talk about music and the technical aspects of music all day, all day. You know how when
people.
musicians get together, all we talk about
Yeah,
is
yeah.
music,
Exactly.
and our non-musician friends say, "Oh God, shut up now. Let's talk about something else." I must ask you this question because you're so experienced. You've been involved in this for a long time. And I asked this of our former guest, but I didn't really get a clear answer. Now, the rhythm section of the band. So we hear a lot that, you know, the rhythm section is carrying the band. Is the rhythm section really leading? Or because if the rhythm section is leading, that means it needs to be audible to every single member of the band, even if you're the furthest away from the drumming. So is it really that the rhythm section is leading, or do they lead sometimes? And maybe the front. Well, I just want you to comment on that.
Say it again. If the rhythm section is needed, if it's needed,
If it's leading,
Leading.
leading.
yeah.
No,
Is it
no, no, no.
leading? And is it leading all the time, or is it the front line
No.
leading?
No, everything is in accordance. Everything comes together in terms of. Remember, most of the time, right? As we're talking about the music, the rhythm section most of the time determines or the genre of a certain passage. For instance, if you're doing Latin, you know, one time the rhythm, yes, will kind of lead you into the genre of that passage, right? Because you're doing Latin, so you want to get that samba, or you want to get that authentic Latin flavor. So they will technically lead that way. But as you do straight 4/4 with your rhythm and your calypso rhythm, everybody's in accordance, straight ahead. Your percussion is actually straight up full part of the orchestra. So it can be definitely not leading, it's just holding your timing and keeping your rhythm as tight as you could. You know what I mean? So your band could be together as much as you could. You know what I mean? Because at times, if the rhythm really and truly start, if you as I say leading and they're going off, right, and they're going too fast in a certain time of your song or position your song, you could end up muddy. Your bassist could end up kind of well off because they're playing a lot of notes, a lot of moving notes, and if it's too fast, it will get muddy. So you always need that rhythm to be steady with your count. You need to count 4, that 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. For the 8 minutes, guys, we're supposed to be right through that BPM. So you're not really having to say that they're leading as such. Just everyone straight in and in accordance to what they are. The full band is playing.
And thank you for talking about that because, you know, I always wondered. And, you know, you hit on something. I want to explore this idea a little bit. You talked about, you know, if the rhythm section takes off and they get faster, then the band could get muddy. And so I want to ask you, because I personally think percussion is not as easy as most people think it is. And I don't mean just hitting a drum, but I'm talking about being absolutely metric, steady. And I know that if the percussion pushes the tempo even a little bit, and the band and the front line is in the middle of some very fast notes, or a trade-off, let's say from one section to another section, they have this running pattern. It could be muddy. So let me ask you this question: when you're rehearsing in the panyard, do you rehearse with the rhythm section under tempo until everybody's sure of how the parts
Yes.
fit together?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And you
In
do a
fact,
lot of that, right? You do a lot of that.
yeah, and in fact, our players are very
Go
much
ahead.
aware of our rhythm section. And if they are being thrown off, you will see the players reacting and turning to the rhythm section and saying, "Hold up." So
What's going
I
on?
guess it's part of how we are. The sections, the arranger, the drill master, there's a constant conversation between all of these sections. And before semi-finals, one of the things that the rhythm section had to do is there was a part that we were not getting right. I say we weren't getting it right. And every member of that rhythm section, whether you were playing the cowbell or you were scratching or you were playing congas, had to play that part by themselves. So everybody knew when it was wrong and everybody knew when they got it correct. Everybody. There was no favoritism about you're a great drummer and so we won't let you play. Every single person in that section had to play their part. And it's a common thing in our yard.
All Stars.
Wow.
Yeah, I know
Wow.
the bands are very excited there.
That's a
Yeah.
It
Well,
is not a. It is
I
not
just
a.
want to make sorry.
It's a
I
scary
just want to
thing
make
to
a
tell you.
comment about what you said. Yeah,
Yeah,
of
true.
course it's scary because anytime somebody singles out a player to you play your part by yourself, it's nerve-wracking, but it does produce results. It produces results
It does.
because then you're not doing it to shame the person, but you're doing it to focus the attention on where the issue is. And so
Very
we know
confident.
as musicians, if you keep giving general comments, that's speeding up, unless the people who are absolutely steady are getting frustrated because they don't know, is it me? Is it coming from? So I think it's a very effective method, but it's also nerve-wracking for the players.
It is.
But
Everybody.
interesting that you do. Do you have anybody break down in tears and say, "I'm not coming back"?
No, not really. But yeah, I mean, plenty years ago, put aside just the rhythm. It have times that people just did not get picked because they just didn't get the part. And sorry about that, but
Rhythm, is
the
not.
whole rest of the band heard why you not playing because they just didn't get it.
And I mean, I don't know if you would
Yeah.
remember Firestorm. When we played Firestorm, just before we went to the stage, they actually had let out fireworks when we had to stop. So as the band stopped, the fireworks went off. But in order to get that right and for everybody to understand what had to happen, and this was not something that we practiced on a Friday night, every person had to play the part and stop. And if you didn't do it, then there was a conversation.
As you mentioned fireworks, I wanted to compliment you because at last year's Panorama, I thought the coordination of the pyrotechnics with the music was the best of any band. Now, a lot of bands have pyrotechnics today, and well, we could get into a discussion about what role that plays. I mean, we know there are no marks for it, but I notice these things when I'm listening to the music, and I was there at the finals live, and I'm looking at the pyrotechnics and I'm listening to the music, and I thought, whoever coordinates your pyrotechnics, they nailed it. It was so much in sync with the music. So I applaud you on that. Is there a person responsible for that? Just that
Yeah,
element?
we have a
Do they?
serious team.
We have a
We actually-
serious team.
We actually have
Yeah.
a member who used to play in the band who don't play anymore because of time, work, and all that. And they're here every single night. Every night.
That's
rehearsing,
important.
And also records the song with certain passages to make sure that everything in accordance to what we want to happen.
Right.
remember we're doing that really for the audience, not doing that for the judges.
Yeah,
Because
you're
as
doing it
it's
for
a
the
visual,
audience, but it's
yes,
important. It's
yeah, it's
important
very
because
important
if
that we
the
give the
pyrotechnics are
audience a show.
not,
Yes,
if
yeah,
it's
definitely.
not coordinated exactly with the music, then it's like a movie soundtrack that's not in sync with the drama that's
And
happening
saying
in the
yes,
film, you
yes,
know?
yes, yeah.
So
So it's a
congratulations.
team, you know.
Wow. Wow, you must put a lot of money into that because I'm sure they practice it, which means money going up in smoke in the Panyard, right?
Yeah, that's why they had to raise the money, they had to raise the price money for Panorama. And then we keep
Yeah.
telling people that because we spend a lot. Every single band that you see on stage, they spend, as you know, just endorsing, right? Spend a lot of money to make sure that show goes on. And I mean, during the course of the season, yeah, I mean, just saying in terms of on stage, fine, you seen it, and a lot of money going up in the air. There's a lot of dollar bills. When you see them pyrotechnics go right, that's one thing. But then you're studying everything else. Tune in, they're arranging, making sure that your members
Fed in
being
the
fed in the
night.
night, uniforms, it's really a lot, you know what I mean? But to put on
Yeah.
the show, yeah, you know what I mean?
But I do think before we get to the end, it's important for us to say that I want to say that I think Pan is winning. Not that I think, I know Pan is winning. I know we are seeing more persons in really interested, not just wanting to go. Even the North Stand sold out for however they configured the North Stand. I know of persons who were regular North Stand people that went and took the opportunity to sit in the grandstand, and they've said their experience was totally different, but they appreciated it. And for them to do that, it means that it may have taken us 90 years, but we are getting to a point where people are seeing this as ours, that we need to take pride in it. And that in itself, I think we are very proud to be part of that journey, to be a solid foundation member of that journey.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Farid?
Allow me to ask, either one of you all, what are your thoughts in terms of the fit for purpose the venue is at this time? We've used the Savannah from 1963 to now. Allow me to use this analogy, Mr. Gulston. When we look at that north stand there, in a northwest direction is a party going on. The noise coming and emanating from that experience, that party there, is distracting. It's distracting in terms of you're announcing a band coming on stage. The band is about to perform, and you're hearing noise and whatever distracting music coming from the party in the northwest position to the north stand. And then another comment. I'm using an analogy that manifests itself. I'm using the medium band experience. While Dixieland was on stage for the semi-final, Arima Angel Harps were right on the edge of the stage. They're getting ready to come on. Their music, they're practicing that final performance before they get on stage. It's interconnecting with the performance on stage with the band that is being judged. I find it disturbing. How does it impact on you in terms of what are your thoughts about the Savannah being in 2025 relevant to what is happening? Do you think, are you of the view that that party to the northwest that is every year taking place should be moved out of the Savannah in a different place where it is not competing with the sound in the Savannah?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, I might get knocked for this, but but then here or there with me. Is idea coming to Pan? You're coming to Pan. Because as far as I know, I mean, I don't mind because other people actually getting work was, I mean, in there, all right? Right? But I don't find it should be there at all. At all. My thing is that day, see Panorama, that Sunday, is Panorama. You come to the here steel band, all right? Because Stacy just said Pan is winning, right? It winning when it comes to you're seeing a lot of people's getting more interested in playing, and they're getting their children, and even some people who never played pan, because we here in Trinidad All Stars, we have an academy from age 8 to 88,
88.
right? And seriously, so people come and learn to play pan, right? But my thing is, yeah, we win in when it comes to that, but still we had challenges because people fighting their own self, and leaving out the pan, because when you're in the park, as far as I understand, I never been there, right? You don't hear no pan inside of there. You don't see the screen with the pan, but you don't hear no pan. So really and truly, what we're really doing, you going to a soca show, so then do the show somewhere else, right? Call it, if you want to call it, Panama party somewhere else. You know what I mean? Whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean? But I seriously, I know, okay, Panchinbego may make some money off of that and wherever it is. But really, actually, when they make the money, then going back to the pan man either. But you, all right, you make money there. You ain't saying, all right, government giving $1 million for this, and we make some more money because we had the greens, and then the grandson and Northstand sold out. And you know what? We pledging, and we put in a next $1 million to the million to make $2 million. It might sound like if I study the money alone, but it's not that. It's how much the players themselves get, or the bands that's where they benefit. The bands don't benefit from that. They don't. To me, they don't benefit. So for me personally, it shouldn't have it.
All right.
I swear. I want to.
When we
I
look-
want people to call you a pan.
How do you feel? How do you feel about the categories? And let me specify. Let me narrow it down to an issue. We have the medium band final that will be on Sunday night. We have bands that lend their pans, and players go from Trinidad to Tobago to perform in the medium band final. Sometimes bands find themselves short of players on Tuesday or Monday night because players have to make their way from Tobago back into Trinidad. And bands have to make its way from Tobago that are loaned out to bands that are going to Tobago to make its way back to Trinidad. Some arrangers and some steel bands say that we lose out on valuable practice time 1 week before the final because not all the players came back. I want to comment on the categorization of small, medium, and large competitions. And what is your view in terms of the arrangement, in terms of having 3 categories? I know small band starts in December, so one may say, well, it doesn't impact as such, but medium does impact on players' availability and on pans availability. Do you see that as healthy, or you see that something needs to be done there?
Not because it didn't really help. In Trinidad All Stars, you cannot play with a medium band. In Trinidad All Stars, you are not allowed to play with a medium band. If you're playing in a medium band, you could stay with the medium band, and that's it. Because we had 2 drummers. One of our drummers got sacked last year for that.
Yep.
And he did not play for the whole season, right? And he's our main drummer. And we're real serious about it because it hampers. You go on Tobago and we are rehearsal, or we have serious parts that we changing, and we can't get our drummer because he rehearsing with a band for medium band. So we don't allow it.
So right? we allow for people to play single pan and small panorama. But after that, there's no mixing of matters. You're either with All Stars or you're with someone else. No love lost, but make sure you know which side of the fence you're on. The other thing is that we don't loan our pans out. No one is taking our pan anywhere. So again, if it is that bands have a need to perform, then they need to be able to sustain themselves. It is a hard call. And it's not about being selfish, but you must be able to sustain yourself, because then you're not really helping the journey of the pan man, the panis, the pan man and the pan woman. If you have this jumping and flowing and stuff, we talked at the beginning of our conversation about how is it that All Stars sounds a particular way. And yes, from a technical standpoint, there is that all the technical things that go into blending the pans and making the pans sound a particular way. But I am of the firm belief, the more you know your story, the better able you're to tell it. And so you need to be here. You need to know your pan. The other thing we don't do is switch pans. You will never see somebody, if they start playing a particular set of pans during the beginning of the season, very rarely would you see them going and playing somebody else's pan for the night. That is not allowed either.
Yeah, the other thing, medium. Is a little bit controversial, if you want to call it, right? And medium band is only about 10 more than a large band. 10 more players, right? For me, it should have single pan, small, and large. Is how I see it.
And maybe that's a good point, and maybe we will eventually move towards in that direction. But I know we're almost out of time, so I want to ask Miss Dane a question, and so
Miss Patrick.
I know all you think is just wanted to make sure it was Stacy and then Dane.
oh, sorry,
Yes, your question.
Miss Patrick.
Your question,
Yes.
Go ahead, sorry.
So this is it's not specific to All Stars per se, but I just wanted to get your thoughts because I'm sure you and your team there at All Stars have thought about it. So Mr. Gulston talked about, even if you won the panorama, Panchenberg will get some of that prize, I believe, and then it goes to the band, and not much filters down to the players who are actually putting in the time, the hours and hours to practice. So what do you think when we look at this whole pan industry in this country? What do we, when I say we, I'm talking about we collectively, not you or I, but what do we need to be doing to move this to a point where the pan man, as a professional musician, is being compensated for their training and skill and time. Just like it is if you go to fix somebody's car, you have a skill, you get paid. You do somebody here in the hair salon, you have a skill, you get paid. But the pan man is putting in all these hours. And so what do you think we as a country need to address to get there?
I think, well, I know for sure that we need to respect the panelists as a professional. We need to move away from the fact, and I will use Dane as an example. There was a corporation that wanted him last year to drive to Yupik down in Macquarie, and they just wanted him to play for 3 minutes. And when I said, well, this is what the fee is, they said it's only 3 minutes. And I said, I can understand for you it is only 3 minutes, but there are certain things that he needs to do in order to present his best self for the 3 minutes. Same thing if he's asked to play the national anthem. There's always that, and we won't undersell. I personally don't undersell his skill, but to give him credit, he's the one that has explained to people, this is what you get for the price that you're charging as a soloist. To the community, there are a couple of things that All Stars has done within the last 10 to 15 years. We actually have a pension fund for our stage side members. So our stage side members contribute into a pension plan, and All Stars pays the next 15%. We, as I said, because we have such a large stage side, there is that constant across the year. We pay our panelists that perform for stage side reasonably well. It may not allow you to go and buy a car or get a mortgage, but it can substantiate what you're doing. And we always involve the membership in how things are priced. This is why we're doing something, so that they start to learn for themselves what they can do in their own business. We have members that have their own pantry, their own transportation company. We have members that do makeup, and a lot of the things that they do in All Stars, they're able to use it as a transferable skill. And that's what we need to start doing. We need to start understanding that your child can be a panelist. Your child, the same way you wanted your child to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, there must be those families that say, I want you to be a musician. And if your instrument of choice is pan, We have now come to the point where you don't have to throw your sticks down the hill to hide from granny. I say that tongue in cheek because somebody in our presence used to throw their sticks down a hill, just not to show that they were playing pan. But that is what it is. We have grown. We have grown, and we need to respect those visits. We saw it last year for the Independence Day Awards, or it's now Republic Day, where musicians are now being honored as musicians. That has to happen more often. The roles that they play in the communities need to be respected.
Yeah, well, when it comes to panorama, because Stacy does kind of generalize, in terms of during the course of the year and performing as individuals or a band stateside. But for panorama itself, I think we also have to same way we got the corporate people to buy out the tickets and stuff. We had to try our best to even tap into international sponsorship. You understand? Total international sponsorship. You know what I mean? The Coca-Cola, the whatever, whoever, NSC. Oh, I just call the names, right? But people who could really and truly also help maybe governing bodies or whoever it is, or the steel bands itself, to really and truly handle all our expenses. Because yes, you may have a sponsor, but you can't really take care of everything when it comes to, especially panorama. All right. Because one of the main things, and you said it, the main thing is the players, and the players do not get paid.
Well,
They don't
this
really-
is what
they
this is
don't.
how I would
Everybody
say
else
it.
get paid.
I for most of the last 20 years I worked with an arts festival, and I used to say to my board when they were cutting the budget, because arts organizations, they're always struggling with money, and when they were looking to cut the budget, I would say we are not cutting the artist fees, because the artist is the reason we exist. This is
Yeah.
the reason we exist. If you cut the artist fees, then we have lost the core or the essence of who we are. So I would stand up for them. Sometimes I'm like you, Mr. Gulston. I speak my mind. I notice
Yeah.
you're like that, Sonia. But you see, I applaud you for it, because if you don't speak out, nothing's going to change. And too many people are afraid to speak up, because we're all in this together. We all want the same thing. We all are striving for the same goal, for the recognition of the pan. Like one of our guests, Mr. Liam Teague, said to us a few weeks ago, he said, I don't understand what is meant by pan is our national instrument. What does that mean? What does it mean? Because what are we doing to drive the industry forward and to create this, as you call it, professionalism for the panman? So we're not going to solve that problem here today, but I think
Yeah,
it's a
but it's always
discussion.
good. It's always
It's a
good to speak out.
discussion that needs to be happening all the time. It should be at the forefront. What are we doing to push it forward? Push it forward, because after Panorama, whoever wins will be so happy, right? Who come fourth will not be so happy. Who comes second might not be so happy. And then it kind of goes out of the public's eye, when we should be
Yes.
thinking, okay, what are we going to do now? Let's learn from what happened. I'm not talking about it on the individual band level, right? But I'm talking about the industry as a whole. And it would be great if the whole panorama could be streamed online with professional cameras, professional audio, professional commentators, because it really is quite exciting. It's quite exciting, but the sound is not, in my opinion, I'm talking about the sound through these radio stations. And it's not the radio stations' fault. It's just that because the bands are moving on and off stage, they're picking it up through microphones. And where you place that microphone is critical to what the listener online or through the radio is going to hear, or through the television. And I just think maybe that's something Trinbago has already started thinking about. But if we are going to move in the direction of exporting this and attracting foreign sponsorship, we have the artistic product, but we don't have all the technical elements to deliver it to the international audience when it's happening.
One of the things I just want to say before we really leave, something that I'm seeing over and over. I don't totally, I may see it here in Trinidad All Stars and some of the other bands too. I don't see enough loyalty in players. Loyalty. You know what I mean? You're coming in Trinidad All Stars to play, you play. Going in Renegades or any other band, Desperados, Face, whoever it is, you had to be loyal some way, you know what I mean? And it's very important because it hampers the bands, you know. You can't play
Absolutely.
with
But
Manchester United and you play with Manchester City too. It can happen.
right.
And this is
Until your contract is over or you pay them back.
contract is over,
But
then
okay, but
you
so what I would say to that, I agree with you. But what I would say to that is that All Stars and a couple other bands, you have enough of a following that you can be a leader in this and effect change over time with your policies, like how you say, no, you can't play with Medium Man. You're playing with us, you can't play with Medium Man because it affects our product. You're a leader in the industry, so you can effect change. Now, somebody like a band from Sandy Grande Codettes, they don't have the visibility or the reputation to effect that kind of change. So with leadership comes responsibility. But
that is why during the year, when people ask our manager or they ask Dean or they ask somebody else, you know, please, another orchestra comes and says we need help or we need you to guide us on how to do something, we willingly offer that assistance and guidance where we can.
Does Trinbago do a post-mortem at the end of the panorama each year and invite views like this where you can express it and they see how they could incorporate it, or an open forum for discussion like this?
Well, I've only been on the management team for 7 years, and I don't know that I've had that opportunity.
That question might be well, when me personally, I don't know if they've ever done that, if they do it at all, because they may talk to certain people and according to who's there, may not listen. You know what I mean? We got a lot of things we talk about in the past and it never materialized, you know, because a lot of times people use the politics, you know, like the yes and we will try, we will do it, or they just don't want to hear it from certain individuals. So, you know what I mean? Because postmortems sometimes could touch people and reach people kind of different. You know, they may think you're attacking them instead of the figure that is, you know, yes, you might spell it, you know, we think we do this wrong, right? But the criticisms is really just healthy, you know, and they mightn't take it that way. So, to be honest with you, I don't know if they really sit down and really talk or want to talk to the right people when it comes to dealing with postmortems. I just say it.
I appreciate how frank you are. One of the concerns I have is for the layperson. When you look at the prices to enter Panorama now, the price structure has varied this year. It's gone up. Now, I'm well aware that we have cost hikes, but sometimes I wonder who sits and makes the decision to charge $500 to sit in the grandstand, or $700 for reserve, or $850 for another price structure. If the bands like yourself.
Yeah, but Mr. Ali, you that's a double-edged sword. If we want the art form to get to a certain point, we need to, because if you say $700, you go to a show on Broadway, $100 US is what you're paying to get into the show on Broadway.
More
and
than
we'll
that.
give you on a
More than
scale
that.
is equivalent to that. In fact, for some shows, show for show comparison, we are giving you a better thing. Now, what we need to discuss is when you get those funds, how is that budget now redesigned or restructured in order to continue feeding the community, the can industry? Because $500, I mean, we have people, even with being underscored or in an underserved community, $500 can come very easily. It is not unachievable. But we have practice. We have individual and section practice starting. So thank you for having us.
We have no split scene. So we will
This is-
forward to another occasion.
This was a terrific conversation. Thank you both for joining us this afternoon.